Welcome to the Watcher Podcast. I'm LD. That's
This is
AD.
Eddie,
That's it. So today we're talking about addiction.
part two.
Part two, exactly. We briefly touched on the how and the why, but we also want to develop a lot more into it as to what can be done. To get away from being addicted to things. So we'll go into more details. Before we ended last, I was giving a little experience on how one of my friends, obviously we're talking a bit about pornography, how people get addicted to it. And, apart from people getting some sort of pleasure watching it and doing, we know the reasons why a lot of people watch these things, just to forget about things and all that kind of stuff. And we touched it briefly in part one. But I was talking to one of my friends and he went back home. And the reason why I wanted to touch on is how your environment can affect you when it comes to addiction. Can your environment help you make the addiction less or worse? So he was someone who was quite addicted to pornography, and he went on holiday to Nigeria, went to one of the towns in Nigeria. Simple way of life, not much distractions. And the simple way of life, as I said before, it's not full of things. It's more the basic necessities of life. So you're in a position whereby you are more present with things. So anyway, he said to me when he went, he didn't feel like watching pornography. And I was wondering how comes? And he showed me the difference living in a city in London and constantly going past billboards of half-naked women, being constantly bombarded on television, your phone, pictures of half-naked women. These things can trigger and cannot help someone who is trying to fight pornography, because it's like sometimes before someone watches it, it starts with something else. The seed gets shown. You could be watching a TV show, a sex scene comes into it. What happens? It gets triggered and you go back to the same old problem. So it's interesting how environment can help. The environment that you put yourself in and the kind of people you have around to help you. And Adrian, I know we're talking about how when it comes to helping people who've got addiction, we have to be honest here. Sometimes they struggle to the person who's trying to help someone struggling. It seems like they require a lot of patience. It seems like, how do you help someone who's got an addiction without losing your patience? Because that's the number one problem. It's, here we go, he did it again.
Yeah. I'm going to start from the beginning and go to that question here.
Please.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with what you said, with the experience with your friend, seeing a billboard or whatnot, and that triggering. For me, yeah, it goes deeper than that, because I actually think that a lot of people that have those triggers is not the trigger on its own that leads you to, there's a layer underneath that sometimes isn't paid attention to or addressed. Yeah. And in connection with the environment, one of those things is stress. And when you're surrounded by a lot of stress or smothered by stress, you look for an outlet, like a release. Like we said before, you go for some alcohol because you feel stressed, or you watch something because you feel stressed, or you smoke because you feel stressed, or you just sleep because you feel stressed, or you go and you shop because you see what I'm saying? So I think what it is right, is not, yes, those things trigger like a half-naked woman or scene on TV or whatnot, but those triggers can only be activated if there's a level of stress or some underlying psychological or emotional issue that's not being dealt with.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I know a lot of people as well that would have the same stress and underlying emotional issues, be triggered by stuff and lead to addiction. But once those emotional and underlying issues, and once that stress has been mostly eradicated, nothing can trigger them. They can see the same half-naked lady on a billboard and go, eh. It doesn't trigger them.
Yeah, it's able to, because, that's why it goes back to why people get addicted to things.
Exactly.
There must be a problem, and sometimes the way to deal with the problem is going to the wrong things, isn't it?
Exactly. And if you are in that matrix of stress and lacking self-love and self-worth and trauma and stuff, there will always be a trigger that will trigger you back to the addiction, because your brain's still in survival mode. Yeah. Again, I'm gonna flip the coin. This does not apply to everyone who's addicted, because we got to admit there are people out there, you mentioned it earlier, there are people out there who have good lives, good families, good everything, well off, and they're still addicted. Some people just want a buzz, and some just don't care, some just want a buzz, want to feel good. Everything is about feeling good, So but we're not talking about those people, even though for some of those people, it can become a problem. Like we see actors like Robert Downey Jr. who, but again, just because somebody has a nice life doesn't mean that it's not an underlying issue, because we can see things from the outside as like, oh, this person has a nice life, a nice house, parents, but you don't know things that happen in secret, in the shadows. We don't know. So
so basically you're saying addiction is not always about how bad someone's life has been.
Exactly.
Right? It hasn't always got to do with trauma.
Exactly. So actually, sometimes it doesn't have to do with trauma, but sometimes it has to do with the other end of the spectrum, where parents are too accommodating, too nice, so there are no boundaries, there's no balance. And sometimes when you see people in good environments, there could be trauma that you don't know of. There could be some kind of abuse you don't know of. There could be some kind of neglect, whereas the material needs are met, but the emotional needs are not. Yeah. It's all sorts of different things that throw out of whack. But now going to your question about how do you deal with, sometimes how do you deal with someone with addiction, because sometimes it gets a bit much. I think the best thing to do is to be as supportive as you can, but always set boundaries for yourself, because a person who's addicted to something, people who are addicted to bad things are always looking for something good to be addicted to. They're not taught. We don't teach people about balance. The whole point is to not be addicted, period. Yeah. So even if you see somebody's on drugs, you tell them, I want you to get addicted to exercise, it would be healthier for their body, but at the same time, it wouldn't be healthy, because you're still being psychologically addicted to something else. Mm-hmm. In terms of people, what you don't want to do is you don't want to become a source of addiction yourself. So if somebody is, let's say, lonely, and they fill that void with an addiction, and you're always there, yeah, you don't want it that you become the addiction that replaces that addiction. And that's when it becomes burdensome. Sometimes it becomes hard.
Exactly. For someone who's addicted, it's always going to call you, oh, it happened again. So it's almost as if you give them enough advice to keep going. You're there to support them, but you also need to be careful that you are not the only one that they turn to all the time. And it's like now all the attention is on you, because there's been situations where I've tried to help people with things, and then sometimes I feel like, oh no, I wish I, because then they keep coming back to you with your problems, because now they're thinking, if I call him, he will listen. Then it's like constantly.
You become the new addiction. You become the new coping mechanism.
That's it. And exactly.
You don't want to become a coping mechanism or crutch. You want to be you want to be there, be supportive, but always keep a distance for the person to make the movements themselves. So you're nudging. You're not like carrying. Yeah. If you find that you're in a position that you're carrying, there's nothing wrong with still being a supportive force, but stepping back, because you're still trying to help the person. It is not helping the person by being their coping mechanism. There's no helping. You're helping them you're helping them to break from one addiction, but you're not helping them to break coping on something or depending on something.
Exactly.
And I think we get in those situations where we don't have boundaries, where we feel like we have to always be there. And you can't, as a human being, you can't always be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah, very interesting. So we didn't go into much details because we touched a little bit in part one, but how I did ask you how you could help them, and we've touched, a little bit on it. But do people who have addiction need love? What kind of love do they need? Because sometimes the way we feel like we need to treat them is to just take away, isn't it? So you're gonna lose everything. If you don't stop, I'll not let you see me again. Oh, so how do you strike the balance? And when do you also say, I can't really help this person?
I don't think there's no balance in taking away from someone who's struggling, because basically what you're doing is you're harming the person even more. Because addiction is the absence of love, the absence of self-love, the absence of outside love, the absence of attention, connection. That's filled with addiction. So it's like saying, oh, we want to put this fire out, so what we're gonna do is add more oxygen to it, yeah? Or this boat is filling with water, so the best thing to do is to throw more buckets of water in it. It doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, in this kind of dynamic, we think it makes sense. It's gonna help somebody. No, it harms them, yeah? And all it actually does is that the person goes underground with it. Yeah, they just become better at hiding, better at lying, better at shoving stuff underground so that they can get into contact with their people. And then that adds extra guilt to the person, because now they're doing even more stuff that's not right in their eyes, and they're being deceitful, and there's more guilt, and then the addiction gets stronger.
Yeah.
So your question, yes, they need love. Yeah, of course, everybody needs love. That's a fundamental for human beings. That's how we were made to connect, to love, to feel love, to connect, to be in social situations, to, that's how we are created. That's who we are,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, to your point, yeah, I just think it's true. It could be hidden. So it's almost as if they need to feel like they can express that they've had a relapse.
Or that they have a problem.
Yeah, that they have a problem, because then if you make it seem so, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is not coming, but if you
taboo,
yeah, if you make them feel like they can't really say it and it's so shameful, you can't talk about you're addicted to something, that's when it gets worse. Because then that's how sometimes a lot of people feel they are alone, because no one is really talking about it.
Yeah,
I've got this addiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people addicted to stuff, but no one really says, oh, I'm addicted to this on something harmful. Like, if the person can feel like it's okay to say, look, listen, I'm struggling with this, then they're not going to feel as bad. They will try their best to work on themselves. That's if, they want to help themselves too, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the shaming and the losing of things, would you say it's not effective?
Not at all. And it's even worse if you have someone to talk to, and every time you talk to that person, they make you feel lesser than, make you feel guilty. Like, oh, you could talk to me. Yeah, come talk to me. You talk to them, go, you're not a good person. That's worse. You need, then again, but the thing is, again, people like this is more of an underlying issue. There are more layers than just addiction. And I think people like this need, yes, on the most basic level, they need support and understanding. But people need therapy, professional therapy, because there's a lot of layers. It's not just, oh, you go in, I have addiction, and the therapist goes, okay, what are you addicted to? Let's work on it. No, the therapist will go, okay, let's start from the beginning. Tell me about your childhood. You know what I mean? Talk me all the way through. Then you realize by the time you've spoken, there are things there in the middle that's like, have you ever addressed this thing here? And you go like, oh, snap, I didn't. And then when you go deep, you realize that's how, because a lot of people that are addicted and struggling, some of them don't actually know how they got there.
100%.
And people look at them in a judgmental way that, oh, you're addicted to something. The people looking don't even know how they got there. Everything's like black and white. It's like right or wrong. If you're doing this, you're wrong. We toss it to the side like garbage.
Yeah.
There's so much nuance in it. There's so many variables. There's a lot more nuance. there's a lot to it. We're human beings, you know, and fascinating in a society that would toss people away for being drug addicts or alcoholics, or say, oh, you're weak because you have an addiction. They themselves think they're strong because their addiction is probably coffee or soda, or you see what I'm saying? But you're just as weak. It's just that in your journey, it's like a lottery. In your journey, you are fortunate that your addiction is something that's mainstream and wouldn't be noticed.
Yeah. Not much is drawn to it, isn't it? No one is going to say, hey, why are you drinking another cup of coffee?
Exactly. Yeah. It's no, but you're just as weak, you know? Mm. For some other unfortunate person, their lottery would have been pornography or cigarettes, or, you know, I have a friend. I'm going to give an example of a friend in Barbados, one of my best friends. He went through a lot and he was heartbroken by something. And he was stressed and he was broken and he resorted to weed. Never smoked before, never, yeah? But to that point, he hung around friends that were smoking. And then he started smoking. And I would go to Barbados on holiday and I would see my friend smoking weed, and it blew my mind. I'm like, what are you doing? Who's this person? And every time I went back on holiday, it got worse and worse. Mm-hmm. And now he's mentally, he's not there. He's gone mentally because he went into hard drugs without knowing a mistake happened. Yeah.
100%. And you know, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I just want to make this one quick point. Yeah.
Yeah, go
this has stuck with me to this day. Mm. That happened years ago. Yeah. Mm. The last time I visited him a few years ago, we're in our 30s. He's almost 40. In his mentally challenged state now, the traumas from long ago keep repeating. And it made me realize, wow, because the things that he would talk about, he would talk about happy moments in our childhood repeatedly, very specific, like a video game, yeah? Very specific. It's almost as if it's locked there. And then anytime something random happens, let's say food's burnt on the stove, he would say, look at this is a lesson, you know, and then he will revert to the thing that traumatized him long ago. And it made me realize that trauma is such a messed up thing, yeah, that even when somebody's taking drugs and they're messed up, it sticks, you know? So a lot of people out there are a lot of people that aren't as fortunate as someone whose addiction is coffee or exercise. Their lottery is drugs, you know, alcohol, pornography, something that would eat away at them and something that's not accepted by society.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, this is why you should never judge people and think that you are virtuous because you don't have an addiction. Yes, you do have an addiction. You probably don't know about it.
100%. You know, and I was going to say, with the example you just gave with your friend, what needed to be fixed was someone to help him, or if he could have been aware that this situation is destroying me, if that situation was fixed, I don't think, you know, he would have gone straight to the weed, isn't it? Because sometimes we think that it's amazing how we always go to the wrong things, isn't it? Get a drink, just get a drink, just get a drink. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong if you want to have a drink, but you go straight to it because you think it's and sometimes the more people get addicted to things, the more the reason why they're addicted gets lost. Now it becomes like, oh, you're addicted. Then other events happen in his life or her life, and it's like, it all gets lost in it.
Yeah.
So trying to help someone with addiction, it comes with a lot of questions. How do you react when this happens? What makes you, and then, you know, because sometimes people, as you said, genuinely don't know why they're addicted to stuff. It's lost. Yeah. Sometimes you might think that's the way they are, but no, something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened, and it's not that, you know, black and white and easy.
nothing in life is black and white and easy unless you want it to be to take advantage or exploit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the world, some prison systems on this planet use that to exploit, to get as many people in prison as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are some countries that help people and go, instead of us tossing you into jail, we'll put you in a center that would help you get off drugs, give you skills. But there are some places that need prisoners for cheap labor.
100%.
So they don't want to fix addiction. They don't want to fix drug addiction. They don't want to fix anything of the sort. They want to criminalize it to the greatest capacity so that they can get as many people in. So for them, it's black and white because they're trying to get as many people in jail to make things for cheap, to get them a lot of money. Slaves, if you will.
Yeah. The thing is, I do like the idea of it. I think it's very nice that they have places like that where you could just go and they say, okay, we're going to educate you as to why you could get addicted to things.
Yeah.
You know, like how in the long term, because those kind of help comes with, listen, problems will arise. You're still going to face stress, but then this is the best way to deal with it in the long term. Because if you're going to deal with it by relying on substances, you're not only hurting yourself, you're damaging your whole, you know, so. And
sometimes damaging people around you as well. Not on purpose, but that's just the nature of addiction.
Yeah.
You know, you don't just hurt yourself.
You know, it's funny because we were just talking about how sometimes people don't know why they, you know, like it gets lost as to why they're addicted. For instance, our mobile phones, there's a lot of reasons why we're addicted to it. It's not just for text messages. Back in the day, you could say, okay, let me check my message. But now there's so many reasons to be addicted to your mobile phone. So it's like, anytime you pick it up, you've got so many options. You could go on this app. I could go on YouTube. I could go on Instagram. I could go on Facebook. I could check my email. So basically, you're always picking up. And how do you feel when your phone is not near you? You know, you quickly turn around. So there are so many reasons why sometimes people get addicted to sex. Sometimes it might not just be the trauma. As life goes on, other things happen, and then they think, you know what, I need stronger stuff now.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, I just feel like what is lost as well, Adrian, is communication. And I know we've started on it a bit. We spoke a little bit about it in our podcast earlier. But the process of talking and working things out is beginning. We are losing it because everything is so fast that you just can't seem to talk to someone without them getting impatient and no one is listening. So, for example, let's say you have a community where, just a small community, where the next door neighbor knows each other. If there's a problem, it's like, oh, look out for me if you see this happen. Oh, listen, I'm really struggling. We're having some family problems. Can I just come and talk to you for a bit? They talk. Now, if that wasn't there, the feeling like I can talk to, you know, my neighbors, if that's not there, they might get addicted to things, because if there's no one around, what do you look for? You look for things, something to excite you.
And I want to add to that very point at the end. You were talking about phones aren't just for messages, but even messages can be addiction. Because like you said, if there's no communication, you don't have a healthy source of communication, or you don't have a healthy source of that, you are addicted to looking at your phone to see if you got a message from someone. 2 messages, 3 messages, maybe a message on Facebook, maybe, you know what I mean, a comment, something. Your life, you become a scavenger for attention and a scavenger for human interaction. And you get it through it's like a whale shark. It's like we've become whale sharks, you know, like if you look at an actual shark, the way they eat, an actual shark takes chunks out of other marine life, They have full meals. But a whale shark, to survive, A whale shark is the biggest fish in the sea. And for it to survive, it has to have its mouth open constantly, swimming and just taking in the smallest creatures in the ocean, plankton, just to keep going.
That's true.
Yeah? And human beings are becoming like whale sharks. Really, like in terms of human interaction, even in terms of love and affection and general communication, it's almost like we're dependent on likes, hearts, messages, comments, just to stay afloat. And it's actually messed up, because when you get addicted to that, when you finally get something that's meaningful, a meaningful friend, meaningful conversation, meaningful partner, you can't operate. You can't, it's almost like you're numb to it. It's almost like you can't function properly when the real thing comes, because you're so addicted to the...
It's true. It's true. Isn't it funny? Because some people in crowds needs to feel comfortable because they know they can always turn to their phone when things get awkward.
We all do that.
100%. And you don't have to look up. You can avoid eye contact. The very thing that you need to know how someone is feeling. It's like, hey, it's like you could literally, you don't have to look, because sometimes people do that because it's like, I don't want you to know how I'm feeling. You're right. Yeah, bro. I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'm cool. Yeah. And here you are on the phone, to the point that sometimes, as you said, when the real thing happens, like when people really want to talk to you, because sometimes it happens with me and my wife. I'm like, we talking, she's listening, but she's on her phone. And I'm like, look, I'm right here. And sometimes it might seem silly. She might think I'm trying to, cause argument. But the thing is, how do you understand what I truly mean if you don't look at me? Because the words is just one side of communication. Reading my body language is another side. It's like, oh, wow, this is really affecting this person.
Yeah.
And that is why that's why everything has to be a shocker, because we've become so addicted to fast track stuff that headlines have to be shocking. Videos now, back in the days, videos that we are now seeing that used to be like, you cannot see because it's so graphic. That is what is now pulling people in. They always need something to excite the brain.
And it's overstimulation.
100%.
We weren't built for this amount of stimulation.
It's too much, isn't it?
It's too much.
And it's like, that's why I feel like we always need to try and go back to basics. Just sit down. Like, isn't it funny that the ways to sometimes deal with addiction is not necessarily going to a theme park to go, I'm screaming. Sometimes like, sit down, like, just shut your eyes for a bit. Just, isn't it funny how people are making money off the basic things that we should be doing anyway? Yeah. Less simulating stuff. So that's why when people say meditation, for example, you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas someone living in a very quiet environment, in a very simple life, can get on the day without having to feel like they need so much things going on in their head. So now people are making money off. Let's talk. Yeah. I'm going to charge you £55 an hour. Isn't that mad?
It's mad.
There's something that we should be getting for free.
Yeah.
Something that should be part of life that could have helped a lot of people not get addicted because no one was listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, as I said, people are making money off communication. People are making money off saying, okay, stretch, exercise. I charge this amount an hour. So to go back to the basics, you have to pay for it. When you could start practicing these things at home, sit down. Are you stressed? Go get some fresh air. I know it sounds really weird because during this pandemic, you are stuck indoors and sometimes you don't feel like going out. But the times that we've gone out for a walk, I come back and I'm like, oh, wow. Like, it's almost as if your brain is energized.
Exactly.
And I'm not joking. It's energized, but it didn't have to take things.
Yeah.
You just had to walk.
Or even in the park. Just go to the park or something.
Yeah. Just get some breathing in. So isn't it amazing that the very thing that we need, we're not doing, and now they are charging for it?
Exactly.
Someone has to create a video to teach you how to just be still.
Exactly.
when really that's what you should go to. So this is very interesting. Sorry, Adrian, I'm talking too much. But
No,
I feel like it's going to lead to what you said at the beginning on how you could help yourself a little bit, in the process, because as much as you need help, there are steps that you can take yourself. So then I guess you need to start saying, so I'll give you an example, yeah? I used to try and have naps when I was stressed and I couldn't sleep because I was stressed and I was forcing myself to sleep. Then someone gave me an advice that, when you lay down, just lay down. You don't have to sleep. But you just need to be still for, even if it's for half an hour, lay down for half an hour and get up. You don't have to sleep. I used to think that the idea of shutting my eyes because I just need to be out, But yeah, I don't know if you've got anything there to add, but I'm gone.